All right, so we're joined by my friend Alva Stuart, all the way from Brooklyn, New York, there in New York City, owner of Stuart Funeral Services, regular guest of the class, unbelievable entrepreneur there in the New York area. I've got a room full here with me at Velma Jackson High School. This is for our entrepreneurship class, and we're recording this for our friends at Ridgeland High School, Madison Central High School, Germantown High School, and our YouTube channel. So thank you for joining us for the third straight year.
Yeah.
Now, hold on.
You're muted?
Sorry, we had an announcement go on there. So before we get into Stuart Funeral Services, because it is a unbelievable business, and like I said, we were looking at it in class and the kids were just gawking at it. You're from Barbados, and then have come to the United States and made a great name for yourself as a great small business owner there in New York. So take us through your background coming from Barbados to the United States and then getting into the funeral business.
Okay, great. Yes, I am from the sunny, beautiful island of Barbados, and that is where I first gained my love and passion for the funeral industry because I lost my grandmother at the age 12, and I was curious as to, how the whole production came together, per se. How did she get into the casket? And that curiosity drew me closer to a funeral director when I went to a funeral, and I asked him, I told him I'm interested and I would like to come and observe. And he said, okay. So I observed a few times, and then I said, "Whoa, I really love this. This is awesome that you get to help families during the grieving process." And he told me how the course of study, of course, you have to come over to New York to study. I went at the American Academy McAllister Institute. You have to study the whole year. You do all science course, pathology, microbiology, anatomy. We always joke and say that you could become a doctor after doing this course. It's so intensive. And then you do a year's residency, which I completed here in New York. And then, the rest is history.
Yeah, and here in Mississippi, we actually have an associate's degree of funeral science at several of our community colleges because, like you said, it is a very lucrative field, but it's not just open the doors and put people in a casket. It is such an interesting industry to me because, first of all, it's always going to be in demand, no matter where you are, but it really is scientific based, it's customer based, it's hospitality based, it is sales based, and it is cultural based. So it really has, just all of that stuff rolled into one to really be a successful business. Now, one thing you've done at Stuart Funeral there in New York is you've used your experience as an immigrant to appeal to other immigrants because we all know New York probably has the largest immigrant population of any city in the United States. So you have all those cultures there, and you really do a great job of honing into these customers that may have a different way of burying their loved ones than somebody from the United States would. So how have you done that market research? Because we always say, you can't just open the doors and say, here we are. You have to see who you're selling to and how you're going to sell to them.
Yeah, that is correct. Lots of market research. And yes, my huge client base is West Indian, Caribbean, but I do service, New Yorkers, American, people from all states, Philadelphia, the tri-states, but yeah, most of my client base, because I am in the Caribbean community, even in my extracurricular activities, I do ballroom dancing, so I have a large following in that community. So word gets around, and as I say, great service does not have any boundaries. So Stuart Funeral Services is here to serve all nationalities, all cultures, all religions. We're just here for the community.
Yeah, and that's a great point. That's what I wanted to talk about next because I always say with every guest I have, if people will buy it, you need to sell it. And if people will pay it, you need to charge it. Now, you've told me yourself you do charge more than other funeral services, but you also offer more because, a lot of young people, they're so concerned with being the cheapest and trying, they're 16 years old. They're worried about being too expensive. But with everything that you offer, especially in a time of loss, people are willing to pay for convenience. If they know they can go to one place and get everything they need for a funeral service for their loved one from start to finish, that gives you the opportunity to charge more. And it's not like you're ripping people off. You are really giving people the convenience of a full package from one person.
Yes, definitely. And I know the value I give, and and luckily people even from contacting me, I've had families, been shopping around, and they asked me after, your price was a little bit more, but from the time I spoke to you, Alva, I knew that I would want you to take care of my mom. I knew that I would want you to take care of my dad. So I know price is a determining factor for most families because death is, never planned. But I'm so glad that people can see or hear through talking to me that for me, it's not only about business, it's about me caring for your loved one, me treating your loved one as I would treat my family. So at that point, cost doesn't matter. And after the funeral, people do say that, that they receive the value and even more when they see that I go above and beyond. So, I know the value I give, so people do not mind, although my price will be a little bit more than other competitors.
Yeah, and just talk about all the different things you offer because we always talk about differentiators in business because anybody can open a funeral home. It's you go through the licensing process and you can be a cookie cutter type place and you can probably still make a profit. But what you offer is just really cool because you have the flowers, you do the broadcast, you do the casket, the urn and the cremation service, you have the cards, you have the transportation, and you just do a lot of different cultural things. And I've never even heard of the horse-drawn carriage of a funeral procession, which obviously that you do and is very popular. So you've done different things to set yourself apart. So what are some of the other strategies you've done to set yourself apart from just XYZ funeral home?
Oh, I have I I I have a campaign where, yes, Stuart Funeral Services is here for the community, but I am very big on pre-planning. So I'm there for families even before they have a loss, trying to tell them to put things in place, like have a will, have a trust, have names onto your bank accounts. Like, don't leave your to the wind after something happens, because it's a very timely, expensive process to pick up the pieces after a loved one passes. So that's a big part of my business. If you go on my pages, I have videos about pre-planning, benefits of pre-planning. And yes, I am there for families when they lose a loved one, but I'm there also for aftercare. So after I have served my families, I'm there to help them put insurance in place so that they don't have to go through what I saw that they went through. I help them put, again, plans in place to leave stuff for their loved ones. If you want to host an anniversary of death event, I'm there. If you want to purchase more memorial gifts, because you may not have the means at the moment, I'm there. So before
Wow.
care, pre and after care, that's how I make myself different.
Yeah, hold on one second. I gotta let the student in the door. Sorry about that. We got a million things going on up here. Now, along those same lines, what blows my mind about your entire business, and I say this often because we actually talk about you often in class because it's so different what you're doing. But something I did not realize by so many business owners around the country that we've had them from all over the country is you still have a full-time job. You teach full-time in New York and still run this very successful business on the side. And there's multiple reasons for that. Obviously, you love teaching, but when you are an entrepreneur, if business ever slides, if sales ever slide, you have to be able to provide for yourself. And then if you don't have that full-time job, you got to pay for benefits on your own. So talk a little bit about that balance and the reasoning for that, because I think a lot of kids think, well, I want to be an entrepreneur, but I don't want to jump all the way in. But it's actually very, very common to do what you're doing.
Yes. Um, as they always say, you should multiple streams of income is the way to go, and you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket. And but for me, I always had two loves or two dreams as a child. I always wanted to be a teacher. I always wanted to be a funeral director. Well, I wanted to be a teacher first, and then I realized that I can do the two. So having a full-time job, yes, you have stability, benefits, stuff like that, but it can also limit the growth of your business because you're not there 24/7. Luckily, I have a staff that takes my calls, and I've been very grateful that families who've called in the day are willing to, not go with other funeral homes, and they wait until I get off teaching at 3 o'clock and they meet with me. So I'm so glad about that. But someone once told me if you want your business to grow the way you want it to grow, you have to give it the full-time love. And I know one day that will happen, but I want to set it up where I still am there for the kids. So even if I work my business full-time, I will still lecture maybe 2 or 3 times a week, because that was one of my first passions. You really know if you love something if you're willing to do it, even after maybe you win the lotto or something like that. So teaching and kids are my passion also.
That's incredible. I mean, but just the amount of time that goes into that, you never cease to amaze me. It's just really, really cool. Now, along those same lines, if let's say that you wanted, for whatever reason, you said, I've taught long enough. I just want to run the business full time. What are some things that you would really have to pay attention to that you haven't had to pay attention to as much now that you've left that stream of income and teaching?
Well, I have to definitely watch my marketing now, because if I run my business full time, especially if my company grow and I go into a bigger establishment, I know I have to definitely watch my costs. I have to make sure I make those monthly obligations, because obviously I wouldn't have a backup. So, it's a big step, and it's a step that I will have to step out, hoping for the best. But it's a part of growth, and I'm building my business so that it would grow. So I know that someday it will come, and I'm trying to set myself up for that. Yes.
That's awesome. Now, along those same lines, these kids get so mad at us, and I think I can speak for all the other teachers that'll see this later. And I know you can attest to this as a teacher as well. These kids get so mad when we had them speak in front of the class. And what I try to say is that it's not to be mean, but in order to be a successful business person, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, if you want to be an employee that works for an entrepreneur, that's fine too. But being able to sell and market yourself and speak to customers and have that face-to-face interaction, obviously you and me can speak in front of large groups. It comes naturally for me. I don't mind. I understand that doesn't come naturally for everybody. But if you cannot speak and articulate what you are selling and what you are offering, they will buy from somebody else.
Definitely, definitely. I have the same issue with my students too. They don't ever want to present, and I tell them this is what you do all day, every day at college presentations. It's something that I would hope that in schools will help. Have classes to help with this, because even if you are an employee, you still have to market yourself. For example, in the interview, you have to market yourself. Why should you choose me versus the other candidate? So you have to be able to articulate. And yes, that is how I gain a lot of my business, because from the phone, people call me, and they like how I talk, and they feel my passion, and they feel how they feel automatically, as I told you, how I would take care of their loved one versus others.
Yeah, and then if you're going to ask a certain price, You have to be able to say, you got to be confident and say, look, here, in the funny, the video from a few years ago was the price is the price. But if you're going to sit there and say, look, here's my price, you got to be able to sell that and show that person what they're going to get. If they can't see the value before you even take their money, they're going to spend their money elsewhere. Because I always say, entrepreneur needs the customers more than the customer needs an entrepreneur.
Yes. Yeah, that is so true. You have to definitely play the part. And, customers can sense fake, they can sense genuine. So, it's just be you, just be you.
That's awesome. All right. Now, before I get to the students' questions, something that I've always been curious about too is what type, to me, even though this is a great industry to get into, I think if people really want to tap into an industry that needs good entrepreneurs, the funeral industry is there. But to me, the emotional part of it would be the most difficult part, because let's face it, even though you are a businesswoman with a great business strategy, you still are dealing with people at a terrible time in their life. Even if it is somebody that has been sick, it's still a sad time. So how do you deal with that? Because to me, that has to be the toughest skill in all of this.
Yes, I do this all day, every day, and yes, you feel sad. I would say yes. At times you shed a tear, especially when people are so broken, especially when the person is younger. And I just hope and pray I never, well, I know it will happen sometimes, but since being a mom, I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. And I know that that will be so hard for me if a family was to ask me to take care of their deceased daughter or son that is of age of my children. That would be very, very, very devastating for me. And but basically, this is what you signed up for, a sad industry. So not that you're immune, but you have to put on your big girl jacket and do what you have to do for these families because they're dependent on you.
Yeah, and I think a big misconception in the funeral industry is that, look, they're trying to take advantage of me because I'm sad. They're trying to take advantage of me because this is a hard time for us. So I think having to overcome that stereotype could be a huge obstacle as well.
Definitely. That is why it's very important in that first conversation to inform family what you do for them so that they see the value, even from that phone call. Yep.
Yeah, and I think that'd be the same in any industry. Even if you're going to do somebody's hair, because we've had a couple. I know when you were with us last time, we had a young lady that wanted to start her own salon. So it's the same thing there. If she's on the phone and you have to say, look, I'm going to do your hair like this. I can send you a couple pictures of some ideas. Here's going to be my price on that. It's the exact same principle.
Yes, definitely. You have to be able to, you know, win in that moment. Win in that moment.
Absolutely. Well, I do have a couple questions from the students. This first one is Donovan Harris. He's a champion archery participant here at Velma Jackson. He's a junior. Is that right? You're a junior? Okay, he's a junior / senior. He's trying to get out of here in 3 years. So he asked, he has two questions. One, what was the biggest inspiration to become an entrepreneur?
Oh, the biggest, because I never, as a child, never thought about owning my own funeral service. But I think the fact that I can run, I have a vision, and because I've learned over the past few years that no one shares your vision. So I get to carry out my vision exactly how I want. Um, you know, I have this vision that I, certain things must be done a certain way. So I don't have to ask anyone. I know exactly what I want. I don't have to consult with anyone. There's no limitations. I don't have anyone stopping me. So basically knowing that I'm the driver of this car. Yep.
Yeah, it is tough. you're the one, you don't have to consult anybody and make the decisions, but you got to make the decision. So it's not going to get made on their own. The other part of his question is, what has been the hardest thing to learn about being an entrepreneur?
The hardest thing I have to learn about being an entrepreneur is that you always have to be on the ball, especially in the industry I am in, because I would never get a second chance to do over a funeral. So it's challenging sometimes when you're planning a funeral service and like little details start to fall apart, but you know that this family is dependent on you. So no matter what, some days you may not feel good, some days you may have put plans in place and they fell through, but you have to push forward because a funeral, as I said, you don't ever get to do it over. So it's like, again, put on your big girl jacket and just move. Just move. No, you don't get a chance to make excuses.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. This is Braylon Carter. He's a member of our band here. He's in ninth grade. And he asked, how important is it to learn an industry before you jump into an industry as an entrepreneur?
Well, it is very important to research because there's a lot involved in my industry, for example. So that's why in the beginning, I observed a funeral director first for a couple of months. I researched the education, I researched the internships and stuff like that. And of course, there were surprises during the journey, but that is how I know I was passionate about it because I had some experience with it a little bit. So I would advise every person who's interested in an industry to consult with an expert in the industry and ask them questions. Don't be afraid to ask them questions. Don't be afraid to ask them to come on their job for a week or two, because this is very funny. At mortuary school, when we were doing our studies, our program started out with 60 kids, 60 students, but only 12 graduated because I was interested to know that some of the people who were in the course, they never saw a dead body before. So the studying and the internship was too much for them because they watched the shows on television, forensic police, but the sight of a dead person intimidated them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even a funeral expert, but I would imagine that if you can't be comfortable around dead bodies, this would not be a good business to get into. And that's just, from from an outsider's perspective. I just got one more from the students. This is Christian Wolf. He's a senior. And he asked, being in a big city like New York, have you thought about opening multiple locations?
Yes, one day I would love for that to happen. However, I know that when businesses grow to a point where they have a big location or multiple locations, some of the control is lost. And
That's
I
a great
want
point.
that the same level of professionalism, integrity, and classiness, as I was saying, that I have with my small business. I would hope that when I grow, that I can maintain it. So I would have to be careful with, even the staff you hire, because as I told you, everyone doesn't share your vision. Everyone would not understand why I say I want it this way. So
Yep.
growth is good, but you lose some measure of control. I'd never want someone to say, even if Stuart Funeral Services grow, that I didn't have a good experience because Alva wasn't there to oversee certain things. So
Yeah,
yes, I want my.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because we're getting ready to write mission and vision statements, and that's so important because if you're going to have staff, you've got to have them on the same page. If you want, and I know your big tagline is a final touch of elegance. If you want that to be done company wide, you're going to have everybody that works for you to have that same mindset and share that mission and share that vision.
Yeah, you ever went into a store and you ask a question and the person says, I don't know? That's one of my pet peeves. It's like, number one, you should know a little bit about your products that you're selling because you're the front of the business. You can't just say you don't know. And if you don't know, you can say, I don't know, but I will find out for you. So those little things, would make me a little fearful about expanding because, the front person says a lot about the business. So I will want people in my business that are knowledgeable, professional, and can carry on my mission statement, the final touch of elegance.
Absolutely. Now, Donovan had one more question for you. And he asked, out of all the businesses you could have started, what drove you to the funeral industry?
Well, the curiosity from my grandmother. And, it's so funny that every day when I am in my business, I thank God because it's like there's no business that I could have think about that is so fulfilling. My business is very what I family is so fulfilling that I love it. It's a job that I would do even for free. Not that I'm advertising, I have free services, but you know, to even say that says a lot about how much I love what I do.
Yeah, and I think that's cool because even though it is a sad time, it really can be rewarding to help a loved one be remembered. Whether it was somebody that will live to be 100 years old or somebody that died suddenly, you really are in a great position to help that family remember that person the way that they want them remembered. And I think
Yeah.
that's such a powerful thing to be able to do, and such a cool thing. And it's just really, it's such an interesting industry, and your story is just
Yeah.
so interesting. So that's why we love having you here, all the way down in Mississippi. Now, we're almost out of time, and as always, we thank you so much for taking some time for us. But you came to this country as an immigrant, and you have built an unbelievable business for yourself. And on top of that, on top of being an immigrant, you're a Black woman in America, in charge of a small business. So it's like you have two strikes against you, three being a woman as well, before you even open the door. But yet you've carved out a very successful career, not only in education, but in entrepreneurship. So what can these kids do when they're going to face similar obstacles, when they want to go into business or become or seek out their career and be just as successful as someone like you?
I always say come up with a plan. Have a plan and do your research. Keep focused, understand that things are going to happen to set you back. But I've said this in the other meetings with you, never give up. Never give up. It's not an option. It's not an option. Just, when obstacles are thrown at you, you can take it. You may fall down, but you must get back up. The eye should be on the prize and, just be tunnel vision. Don't ever give up. Like giving up, never an option. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we thank you so much. Alva Stewart, owner and founder of Stuart Funeral Services, the final touch of elegance, all the way there in Brooklyn, New York. Thank you so much for taking some time for us today. I just love every time we talk.
Thank you for having me. I'm so glad to have this opportunity.
All right. I'll talk to you soon, my friend.
Hey, yes, bye-bye.
See ya.